Hello and welcome to our last of a series of 3, Team Building Through Change. Today we're going to be talking about collaborating through change, especially looking at remote collaboration and what we can do and how we can help with the data that you have inside of your PI system to help move people towards being productive and look at how we can achieve our objectives in a time of crisis. A couple things before we get started. You can put any comments or questions in the chat. Raise your hand to speak up. If you haven't taken the PI yet, if you're new to PI, we can put the link right there. We'll have a Q&A session at the end here. Our whole objective here for the past 3 days has really been able to help you accomplish a few things: to understand your team development in the context of these changing priorities in this crisis, and ultimately to empower you to thrive in this downturn. And then the other thing, if you want to combine all these 3 into a 90-minute webinar for your team, using the data that you have inside your system, we will do the heavy lifting for you. We don't expect you to do it all, but we would be able to provide that. There's no charge for that to your organization, but we would like to be helpful in any way possible for you. It's Friday. Happy Friday. Some of you might look like this, have that shirt on and just shorts on underneath. Hope you all can have a good weekend and really take it easy for a little bit. When we look at what we've been doing the past few days, really it all falls on talent optimization. We talked about strategy, how to get those business results, how those objectives may have changed, and just because they changed doesn't mean we can't still go after the results. But we do have to look, and what we'll take a hard look at today is that middle piece there. So you might not be hiring anybody. You may be. I just got off the phone this morning with a company that is. You may be redesigning some roles. You also might be just trying to get people on board. So the team priorities have definitely changed quite a bit. So why we're here, really the team priorities, as I said, have changed. What are the new team priorities? The members have changed. How have those members changed? Have we moved them to different teams? Have some been laid off or furloughed? The questions that I've posed the past couple days really have been around, how have the business priorities of the company changed the team objectives? We talked a lot about that yesterday. Were team members lost due to a reduction in force or moved around? Were employees from other parts of the organization maybe added to the team? Could be a completely different team. And I think the biggest question on everybody's mind is what we're most concerned about is how does this team enter into the next stages? What do we do? What we've taken a look at over the past 3 days are the team. We talked Wednesday about how teams are inclined. People are inclined to over-rely on their strengths and how these overused strengths can result in counterproductive behaviors and a lack of versatility and resilience. Yesterday, we talked about the operations piece. The talents of the team and the team objectives may have been well aligned prior to the crisis, but given the changes, sometimes significant, that have gone on, that have been thrust upon the team's goals and its people, the odds of that talent misalignment are much more likely in a time like this. And then today, what we're really going to be talking about is in the wake of layoffs and changes and things, fear and uncertainty can really paralyze the team. So the productivity of this temporary freeze of employees as they struggle to move forward emotionally and attempt to do more with less. The challenge here is to what we're going to give you today is how do I rekindle that? How do we continue to get that going and move it forward? Some people don't know what to do, so how do we do that in this new environment, especially as we see today, collaborating through change? How do we manage people that are remote? Had a different call this morning with a company that, half their team are coming into the office one week with the social distancing, half of them are coming in the next week. So they're having to shift between one week working in the office and then the next week working from home. Yesterday and Wednesday, we spent a lot of time talking about the two sides of the same coin, the work to be done and who's doing the work. Wednesday, we really spent a lot of time looking at who's doing the work, the people, and how they may be overutilizing those behavioral traits and characteristics. Yesterday, we spent a lot of time on the work to be done, setting new objectives. How do we do that? How do we go about that? Especially using data in a smart way to make good decisions till we get those people in the right places so the work gets done. So today, the frozen team, employees might be doing more with less. Even yesterday, we said they might be doing less with less. It depends on the circumstances. The picture on the right, I think some of us have felt. Had a session last night with the CEO who's a mom, and that picture looked a lot like her, but she had two little kids right by her as we went through some things. So you may struggle to be productive and move forward. This could be part and due to fear and uncertainty that we're all experiencing. You're going to face additional complexities of working remotely and maintaining that team collaboration through social distance. So we're going to give you some tips and tricks that we recommend that you utilize. And again, we're always here to help out when needed. The past couple of days, we've really spent more on the team dynamics, the culture, the objectives, how that's changed. Today, I would like to focus on for you, job fit and manager impact. So we know these four things really cause a lot of environmental pressure or stress inside the work environment. These four things, a lot of times, are also why people leave or why they're not as productive as they can be. First thing we're going to focus on is the job fit. So the disengagement forces when you have somebody that's not aligned in their role with the natural tendencies of that person. One of the things that we can be doing right now is looking at, has this role changed? So what you see in front of you on your screen, most of you should be familiar with this. For those that aren't, this is a job assessment with the overlay of a person's PI on that job assessment. So in the orange, what you'll see is a range of behaviors that we believe will attribute to success in that role. And as you can see, this particular person fits pretty well, a little gap in that D drive. So with the details, which might be occurring even more, there might be a bigger gap in there because they don't have the structure of the office if they're working remotely. The other thing is, the job may have changed. We talked about objectives yesterday. It might be a good time for all of you. Again, we can help with this if you want, to look at and clarify what needs to be done in the role right now. This job assessment may have changed a little bit, so getting agreement on that, what actually needs to be done. You can do that and have the discussion. Has it changed? The other thing you might want to be doing here is what pressures are going on for that person. So this particular person, if you looked at this person, they might not be able to go out and do all the things that naturally come to them. So they might be feeling a little bit of pressure to overperform, or this might be one of those people, as we talked about Wednesday, that's really over relying on their strength and really causing some dysfunction for their teammates. Or they might have, quite possibly, they might have checked out too. But getting this alignment, getting that clarification between the expectations, and then having a discussion with your employees about what they're actually supposed to be doing, and aligning it to this gives great clarification to folks. Hey, what should I be doing? What should it look like right now? Has it changed? You very well could go into your system, and this could be sales manager position, and you might have a different one that says sales manager position during COVID or during crisis. Just some things to be thinking about, but having those discussions back and forth about what those expectations are, because when we don't understand what the expectations are, then we're just left to our own devices, whether that's overcompensating and really over relying on those muscles and strength, or just going the opposite way. One of the ways that you can do that objectively as well is by the use of the personal development chart, coaching charts. Okay, this personal development chart, bring this out. Good time to have a Zoom call. Hey, what are your strengths right now? And you can do this on anybody that has a PI inside your system. What are the strengths? Let's focus in on some of the cautions right now, because what you used to do might be a little bit different. So we want to be looking at things that could potentially be cautions now that were strengths in the past, and then you'll see that there are some self-coaching tips there as well to guide that discussion. Again, these are always nice things to have because they're more objective. They're using data. So you eliminate some of the emotion that's involved when you're going to critique somebody. It's like, okay, this is just how you are. These are the strengths that we have. We can't utilize them all right now. When we brought you in, we really wanted this. Right now, we're going to have to back off of some things here or there. Or how can I help motivate you with those strengths if that's what we do need? A lot of different angles to come at this. The other piece of the pie, so there's the person, there's the role. What we want to look at is the alignment between the manager and self. And this is becoming crucial. I've had a lot of discussions, as have the other consultants, and some of them are on the line here at Center for Victory, between what's going on between manager and employee. Again, you can start having the discussions between that fit, that job assessment, and the person. But what could be happening right now is these differences between the manager and the employee could be exacerbated during this time. So to get people unstuck, right, you could be looking at things on how can we be more complementary in nature. What do we have? What should we be watching out for, between us? And how can we work better, do more with less? This is an example here. So we have Alan, who's the head of sales. What Alan needs, if you look at his PI, and I'll put his chart up here, put his PI graph up here momentarily. Alan needs feedback, needs lots of opportunity to influence, and he needs people connection. Probably not doing well right out of the gate when everything was shut down. I need FaceTime, I need feedback, I need to talk. And now you have the person that he reports to is very direct, data-oriented, operationally focused. What happens when Mark, the CEO, or Alan's the manager in this situation, he gets more task-oriented. These are the things that I want to do. could be dismissive of Alan and Alan's need to talk through things and be collaborative in nature. One of the things we want to watch out for is how can we make this relationship more harmonious and more complementary. Mark, the boss, might not want to get on the line and be talking to everybody on Zoom. He might not feel that it's needed and it's only needed in certain times. Well, he could rely on Alan to do that. And then Mark could help Alan out with other things, especially more of the detail. Hey, this is what we have to get done here. One of the things, if I can, whoops. I'm going to post this guide for you. I'll do that at the end. I've got two things to share with you. I'm going to post this manager guide to reference profiles because we talked about it, especially heavily on Wednesday. But it's just a guide to reference profiles. Most of you should have that already if you've gone through training. I'll post that at the end. One of the other things that you can do, again, using objective data, is to look at the relationship guide. So between supervisor and employee, you have two people, and you'll see at the top you have Kim Kiwi and Evan Elderberry. It lists the strengths of that. They're very two different PIs. Lists the strengths. It goes down further in the middle part, you'll see the cautions. And again, the takeaway here is, okay, what can we do? How can I, if Evan's Kim's boss, how can Evan help Kim be better at this relationship and engage Kim in a way where she can be productive, whether it's at home, whether she has to come into the office, whatever she's doing. How can we make that relationship more productive? Most folks have less people, so how can we do more with less? We have to look at the complementariness of the relationship and create some synergy in that relationship and all the relationships. On a side note, I will say we've been using this a lot. I've been having lots of discussions with people around this, just pulling this up, giving them extra talking points, and then also getting into the other piece of documentation that I would lean heavily on as a recommendation is the manager scorecard. So this is inside your PI software. It gives you discussion points according to a particular person's PI. How I would utilize this is just really send this out to the employee, have them fill it out. It becomes more of a scorecard for the manager. I would also suggest that as a manager, we do this too. We take time to say, hey, look, what do I think I'm giving to this employee? If you've been using this previously, as some of you have, this is a good time to revisit it because things have changed. What might have been easy in the past, maybe inside of an office situation, might be hard to give to that person, and therefore they're becoming disengaged. So have the discussion, hey, how can I give you more of this during this time? This makes sense. Any questions on this before I move on? You'll post them in the chat. Okay, to have discussion points on this, the second page of the management strategy guide has lots of great questions here. What have we done well? What can we do better? What we would suggest is you repeat this, maybe even more so than just every quarter, every 90 days. During these times, you might want to pull this out every month or so and just say, hey, look, how are we doing here? How have things changed? They continue to change. But then the one thing that I would make sure to do is make sure you have on step 4 there, really put it in your calendar and see how can we reevaluate, when are we going to reevaluate these things, and how and when are we going to have another discussion on these topics. Couple of things that we talked about, I referenced it on Wednesday. One of the webinars that we taped a couple weeks ago, it's on our YouTube channel. It was done by one of our senior partners here, Christy Colley. She went through some techniques and strategies when looking at highest drives and that amplified behavior and techniques. This is another document or some things that you might want to take along with you as well. So really looking at, this is your highest drive. Here's the amplified behaviors that you might be seeing. Here's some techniques to circumvent that and just be more aware of when things are going on. But when you're working, especially with remote workers, it's a good discussion to have, because if you have somebody that's a high SC and has a strong need for routine and not being interrupted, and all of a sudden they're having to work from a home office and they might be a parent, they're going to start to feel a little bit overwhelmed and they're going to just naturally disengage. Well, how can you help them plan their day? Just simple things. I had a conversation yesterday afternoon with someone, and they just said, I just like to know when I'm expected to work, because I wake up early in the morning and I don't shut my laptop down till 8, 9 at night. I'm trying to get some work-life balance here. I'm not thinking as clearly. I feel a little stressed out, feel a little anxious. What's going on? I just need some clarification around that. And that could be with a highest D2. You might want to be checking in more with your high Bs, just being mindful that, as being a high B, we need to talk through some things. But on the other hand, not getting on a Zoom call and taking over, which could happen as well for that high A. We talked yesterday, I believe it was yesterday, on, just because the loudest voice, that's what everybody hears. That doesn't mean we need to be paying attention to that. Okay, we need to hear, but we also need to listen to other people. One of the other tools that, if you're interested, for some reason I can't get this to post in the chat. I'll try to when we go to questions. But if not, you could shoot us an email. This remote work guide will give you some of the things that we've been talking about so far. And again, it's a good discussion to have. If we did the whole 90-minute webinar for anybody, we would take time to make sure everybody had this and do an activity around it using their PI. I'm going to jump in and share it so you guys can at least see what it looks like. So this remote work guide has a lot of the things that I was talking about, but it also has some checklists depending on where you sit with your factors. So it has tips for improving, and it has this for lower A, higher A, low B, high B, as all of these things. So if you're interested in that, shoot me an email. Be happy to send you that document. But I will try to post it in the chat as well. As you can see, it's just some tips for managing higher A individuals during remote work. Tips for those improving your remote work experience if you have that higher A. And again, it goes down through all of the factors. Nice to have, again, nice discussion points, because you're not being as subjective. You're being a little bit more objective by using that person's data in their PI report to say, hey, look, this is what's going on. These are some tips. I didn't create this. This is coming straight from your data. Okay, just some upcoming events. Again, we have if you need trained and want to get your PI Jedi certification, that's Tuesday and Wednesday. That is virtual. And then growing in times of uncertainty, going to be next Saturday. Look for that on social media and email as well. To wrap things up, I'm extremely proud of what we've been able to accomplish in these 3 webinars. I'm pretty confident that what we've started today will help enhance the ability of your teams to thrive as we all recover from this crisis. We started Wednesday with team dynamics. We armed ourselves with some self-awareness and the guide of self-coaching actions to manage those overused team strengths. Yesterday, we discussed your team objectives and team behavioral styles to understand team alignment. And this realignment of roles will be crucial for supporting successful execution of those objectives moving forward. And then today we've shared some resources, just some things, full of ways to get your team and get that productivity rekindled. Before we get to questions, just some next steps for you. Here are some suggestions. What I would suggest is we get together. If you need this help, get together with your consultant. Let's do a quick debrief conversation. Collect your team's data and prepare for the team session. And then in a couple weeks, 2 or 3 weeks, let's conduct this webinar internally for your team. Again, just to make sure everybody's on the same page, there's no charge for this. It's just a way that we would want to be helpful to you and your team in this time of crisis. Questions? Okay. You have an underperforming employee, you, the supervisor, see how many of those 12 blocks on the management strategy guide you can check. Yes, once you have your number, then give the management strategy guide to the direct report, have them complete, compare the results. Yes, very powerful. Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Okay, if that's all, please be in contact with us, be in contact with your consultant. Happy Friday, enjoy your weekend. And one last thing, I want you to picture this. I mean, we're gonna have a celebration one of these days, guys. I mean, times are tough. We'll all get through it, but we'll get through it better together. So stay the course, let's celebrate, and we can all do this. We can do it all together. So have a great weekend, and we'll see you soon. Take care.